What's up, queens? You're listening to Black Queens Uncut. Grab your wine, your vape, or whatever relaxes you, because we're about to have some queen chat. Today, we're talking about toxic relationships. This is such a big thing. I'm Anique Loveless. Ladies, introduce yourselves.
What's poppin'? It's your girl, Kiki Boom Boom.
Hi, Queens. It's your girl, Miss Candy Marie.
What's up? It's TK Trinidad.
Okay, so today is toxic relationships. We could probably have a whole hour on this, but we're not. We might have to break this up in like 2 parts, but we'll see. So we're gonna start out with toxic romantic relationships.
Oh, child.
Honey.
I like a little toxic sprinkled in my... I'm kidding.
No,
Like, where are you going with
for
this?
Cameron, you can't have no toxicity.
Kidding.
Okay, so I feel like we've all been in a toxic relationship. Were you like, has it been recent or were you younger?
For me, I was younger. Thank you, Jesus. I was definitely in a toxic relationship, and it was toxic. I knew it was toxic. I kept going back. And I'm just blessed that I'm older now.
Right.
And I would never do no shit like that ever again. But I do look back and I do shake my head. I be like, damn, fam. Like, there's so many situations that I put myself in that I didn't have to be in.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, you're young and sometimes dick will do those things to you.
So how long did it take for you to get out of that?
God, like, honestly, me and this person were, like, in a relationship for 2 years. We stopped. We got back in a relationship. We stopped. It's honestly not until, like, I moved out here when I was 29. I'm now in my 30s. Mm-hmm. And I think God put me in a situation to move away from all the distractions, because I had a lot of distractions back home. There was a few toxic relationships back there. So it really got to, like, the end of my 20s. And once I moved out to L.A., I was able to let all of that go.
And what do you say you learned from that relationship?
Baby, shit, don't do that shit again.
That's all you learned?
No, I learned a lot. I learned, actually, you know what's funny? I feel like I learned to love myself a little bit more, because I feel like when I was there, I didn't love myself. I feel like I was doing things just to settle, just to have a guy around. Mm-hmm. I was letting this guy walk all over me and take advantage, and I feel like I just learned self-love and learned that there is love out there that's not toxic, and you don't have to deal with that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. To do that shit again.
Okay, so my last relationship wasn't probably my most toxic relationship. I've had a few toxic relationships. The guy I moved out here for, that was a toxic relationship. We ended up ending off a note where we almost killed each other.
Oh.
And then this one was mentally toxic. I would say that it taught me so much, though. We were together for 2 years, and I don't think we should have been together. I think we should have just always been friends, and I kind of forced that, like, relationship, which I feel like we do a lot. And, y'all, but let me tell y'all, I got, like, a 2-year business degree out of this nigga, okay? Okay, that was like, I didn't pay.
I love it.
I mentally paid for it, but I didn't have to, like, pay out for it.
Listen.
So,
well, I mean, there's the plus.
that was the case. But it was
Right.
a super mentally and emotionally toxic relationship. But I learned how to love myself. I got that business degree, hunty, okay? And I also learned what I want and not to settle for anything anymore. Mm-hmm. Especially now that I'm in my 30s, it's like I want more of the man aspect than trying to mold. We had this conversation.
Oh, gosh.
Than trying to mold somebody or making somebody try to like me. Like, you should already know. You should already be on top of me. You should already be, like, hollering at me. You need to want in your life what I want in mine. Mm-hmm. So we need to be, you need to be aligned just as much as I'm aligned. That's what I feel like I learned from it as well.
Yes, 3 snaps.
Yes. Candy, what about you?
You know, I'm with Kiki Boom Boom. Like, why do toxic men always have good dick?
Baby.
I
They do. They do.
Oh, my
yes,
goodness.
like I
They
hate
do.
them, but
Choke
okay,
me.
anyways,
Okay, I'm sorry.
You know, we had a moment.
I gotta
y'all.
go home.
We had a moment. Bring it back. Okay,
She need to go
back
take
to the
another nap.
toxic- Back to the toxicness of this. What's going on? What's going on? What Josh say?
Kiki wants to be choked by somebody.
Oh,
we don't know
God.
who.
Oh, Lord. See,
Just went all out.
choking is
So
also
untoxic.
toxic.
I'm
Like,
kidding.
the fact that we allow a man to choke us, you know, I'm not even going to go there,
Listen.
but
Wait,
yeah.
Me and Candy are both on one today.
Did you wait?
We're
Did you
on a
say
whole-
how can you allow a man to choke us?
I did.
Okay. I mean,
I love
let's
you,
move on.
Candy.
Can we
We'll
move
leave it
on?
alone.
Yes, move
Can
on,
we
Sid. Go ahead,
please
girl.
Move on. Okay, let me get to the inspirational part, okay? Because y'all over
get
here
to the
unleashing the
inspirational
bad
part.
side.
That's kind of inspirational,
Okay.
though, depending on who you're with.
What, getting choked?
Yeah.
Yes.
Moving on, Candy.
I'm sorry, but I didn't always enjoy being choked.
Listen.
You have to
With my
be in the right.
clothes on, no.
You-
With them off.
You
I
have to be-
mean,
you have
that's
to
a
be in the
different
right. You have to be in the
story.
right scenario, Candy.
Anyway.
Right person, right
Exactly.
scenario.
Okay, and I just have to say this has nothing to do with domestic violence in any way. I
Yes,
did
no.
not ever
Oh,
allow a
yes.
man to physically harm me, or I just have to clear that up for all of our listeners listening, okay?
Yes.
But
we
yeah,
agree.
so I think that sometimes we, like, for me, I was in a situation with somebody where I wanted more for him than he wanted for himself. And, you know, initially it started off with me constantly encouraging him and oh, you're so talented. I see this in you. And to the point where I was like, you know what, this nigga is just lazy as fuck. Like, what is wrong? And it became an annoyance. So it went from me trying to inspire him and support him to me, like, literally just being annoyed to the point where it was just like every little thing that he did just got on my damn nerves,
Yeah.
you know? And then it was just like, okay, well, if this man is getting on your nerves, then why won't you just walk away? Because at this point, you know, you've had probably unprotected sex, you know, like emotions are really starting to get, like, tied up to the point where it's like, it's hard to let them go because you have that physical attachment to the point where things keep happening and happening and happening. It keeps escalating and escalating, and to the point where you just explode. And then it finally happens, and then the shit hits the fan, and then you walk away. But it should never, ever get to that point where you start to lose yourself.
Right.
And you're questioning the things that you're doing, and it's like, this isn't me. Like, I would never do this, but you allow yourself to get to that point.
Right. How long did it take you to walk away from that relationship?
Oh, girl. Okay, I was probably with this person for less than a year.
Oh, that's
but
good.
it took me getting to a place of where, like, I don't even want to say what happened, but let's just say the shit hit the fan, and I was like, nope, I could never ever like I could never ever be in a situation like this again, and I could never ever like do that to myself again.
Right.
And that's I think what I learned altogether was to trust myself, because I think the signs are always there. We just tend to overlook them. So I had always felt in my gut that something was wrong. You know, I had always felt like, okay, this man isn't appreciating me. He's not appreciating the effort that I'm putting into this relationship. I feel like he's lying. I feel like he's doing that. But I would overlook the way that I felt, and I would try and lean onto what I thought he was doing or what he was telling me. So I think moving forward, it's taught me to trust myself. If something doesn't feel right, then most times it's probably not. And then also it just taught me that I'm a bad bitch.
Okay.
Like, don't settle for a man that's beneath you. And I think sometimes we tend to do that too. So.
Well, you just answered the last
Preach.
question, honey. You preached it on what you learned. Okay.
Okay. So.
TK, what about you?
Yeah, there was
Multiple.
one. Not multiple. There was one main one where most people have relationships that you learn lessons from. And, you know, especially when you're young, certain things happen. So, you know, it's just one of those things. Like, I count my first one as it wasn't the best situation, but we were both very young and is whatever. The last relationship was definitely way more toxic because he had me in a place of questioning, you know, my self-worth. Whereas somebody who is, if you know me from growing up to everything like that, like, I've always been a very, like, on top of things person. I've always been, like, you know, very, like, I knew who I was. I was very encouraging. I just did my thing.
Right.
And he had me in a place where it was just questioning my self-worth. And that's where, like, what I learned from that is to speak out no matter what. So now I over-talk everything, meaning that if there's a situation where I don't feel comfortable or I don't feel safe, I'm not going to wait until, like, you feel better. I don't really care about your feelings. It's more about, you know, what are we going to do right now? So that's what I really learned from that situation.
How long did it take you to walk away?
Well, that was the problem. In my, how I was raised is, like, you ride or die. So when I got to that relationship, my mind was like, all right, this is just a rough patch.
Yeah.
We chilling. Like we're it's not a good situation right now. And like I don't even want to go into details of all everything that happened, but like I just figured, okay, it's a downward. It's gonna go up.
Yeah.
And what happened was literally, and for you guys who don't know, I'm really big on birthdays. So what happened is probably about a day or two before my birthday, he broke up with me before my birthday. And then it was just like we were living together, and
He
he's
broke
like,
up with you on the day before
my birthday,
Ooh, child.
and we were living there.
I
And
would have egged his house.
but that was the thing. I actually have to thank him for that, because if he did it on any other day,
Right, you
like,
would have forgave him.
yeah, I would have been like, okay, we're gonna get through it. But
You're
because,
right.
because my birthday is such a thing to me.
Same.
It was just like and he knew it. Because I also celebrated his birthday how I celebrate my birthday. So he knew it was such a thing to me that it was just like, oh, okay, cool. And after that breakup, everything else in my life career-wise just blossomed.
Yeah.
So it was like he was dead weight. But because of him and learning what, like, just speaking for myself, the
Right.
person that I am today, I have to thank him for that.
Right.
Because
Did
I
we
wouldn't
get
be.
how long it took you to walk away from me?
From him?
Yeah.
It was like 3. Well, he walked away from me.
Oh.
It was 3 years.
Oh.
I would have still, if he didn't break up with me, I would still probably be with him.
Really?
It's
Oh,
like
yeah.
a blessing in disguise.
Yeah, because I'm the type of person that now I'm not. Now I see certain things. I'm like, oh yeah, we're not going there.
Oh,
But-
no.
Yeah.
You're still a very loyal person.
I am very.
to an extent.
I'm very
'Cause
loyal.
some of the stuff that you tell me, I'll be like,
See,
clip,
did-
clip, motherfucker.
Did
Clip.
Did we talk about this? How the conversations we have are no longer.
I didn't say nothing. Did I
But
say
she
anything
just said
specific?
something. But
She
she
didn't
said
say
something.
anything personal.
But
She just said,
But she
clip,
just said. Anywho.
I said some of the things that you deal with, I would have clipped
I
already.
am definitely a very loyal person, because I feel like once you're in my space and I allow you in my space, I don't allow a lot of people in my space, then like I roll with you. So yes, I am definitely a loyal person, but the things that I went through with him, definitely. So maybe the things that are happening in this, the conversations that Monique is trying to talk about, but she's not allowed to talk about.
I didn't say nothing.
Maybe the stuff that's happening there you would clip, but the things that happened with him, that it will never happen. Like, I'll give you an example. He used to have me do a bend over test before we left the house. Like, that stuff is never gonna happen.
Oh, to
Yeah.
see like how short your skirts
Yeah,
were.
my skirt couldn't be past a certain length. Like, it was very oppressive. It was very
Yeah.
We can't even talk on that. That's like
yeah, that's a
Hella
hashtag
toxic.
mental health
Yeah.
type
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, I
So
feel
that's
that.
what I'm saying. So that type of level of stuff, I will never allow somebody to put me in that position.
I feel
Again.
that.
So
Yeah.
it's just kind of like I had to be thankful for how he did it and when he did it, because I would still be in it.
I need to call y'all queens out, because did y'all say ooh? Did y'all like? I was like, what did y'all
No,
say?
not
Ooh. When
ooh.
she said bend over, I was like,
No,
ooh.
we was like, oh no.
Because I was trying to figure out like
Oh,
bend
I thought
over,
y'all-
like figure it out. But then
No.
I was like, it's probably not a good bend
No,
over.
it's a bend over
No.
test.
I was like, y'all some freaks.
no, not the good bend over. That's what's happening now. That's what I'm
Like,
appreciative of. But back then, no.
Hey, hashtag good bend over.
Like,
Okay,
I gotta
so-
call them out.
Oh my gosh, I cannot. This is a big one for me. Family and toxicity. Y'all, my family. I hope they don't listen, but they are toxic. They are super toxic.
Listen.
This is a big issue for me. Like, we could go on for hours for this one. How do you balance loving your family and staying away or dealing with their toxicity?
Ooh, I mean, you know the saying, you can't choose your family.
Mm-hmm.
I do think, I remember when I was younger, God bless my aunt, she passed away, but my aunt was the aunt who lived her best life.
Mm-hmm.
Her and my godmother were a couple, they've been together for 40 years. They were like just rich lesbians living their best lives,
Mhm.
and we would never really see them as much. So growing up, I'd be like, damn, like they're like the best aunties, but we never really get the chance to see them.
Mm-hmm.
And as I got older, I understood why. She would stay away a lot because it was one of those things where she's like, I love my family.
Right.
I just can't be around them too much.
Mm-hmm.
And as I got older, I understood that. And I love my family to death. Family means everything to me. But, there's, the generational curses and the generational baggage that some people are not willing to change.
Or acknowledge.
At all. So, and I have a lot of talks with my friends who have issues with their family. I think my family, we've gotten a lot closer because we suffered from 4 deaths in my family. So we've gotten a lot closer. But when I was younger, I definitely went through stages where I was like, all right, I now understand why my aunt used to stay away.
Right. I feel the same way. So me and my mom weren't really close. She's of a different religion than Christianity. And so we weren't really close. Me and my grandma were really tight, but me and my mom weren't that close. So all of my family was taught that you're supposed to respect your parents and they have to stay on their side. So anything goes down, it's kind of like nobody really had my back. So I kind of stayed away from my family as much, which is actually the reason I moved to LA. I always say it was for a boyfriend, but it was really to get away from my family. As far as I could. That was the biggest thing, to get away from them. I didn't talk. At one point, y'all, I lived in Atlanta, and my family didn't know my address or my phone number.
Wow.
And they lived, literally 30 minutes away from me.
That's deep.
And
I feel that.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where I feel like our family has been so split. We have our immediate family who feel like, they're kind of like me. They're a little bougie, so they think they're the upper part of the family. And they don't really talk to the ghetto side of the family. So, I don't know. It's a real toxic situation. The way that I've maneuvered it is being out here for 10 years and just unlearning everything to relearn my own life and to lead my own life. And now I'm able to talk to them certain ways and not get upset about certain things. But it took the whole 10 years, Queens. Okay? It took the whole 10 years, 5 years of praying, 7 years of being like, I'm over this shit. I ain't talking to y'all ever again. I don't care who calls me, who doesn't call me. I don't care what happens to y'all. I ain't coming to nobody's funeral. That's how bad it was. And I had to unlearn to lead my own life. And that's kind of how I deal with it because it's still pretty toxic.
I'm sorry, boo.
No, it's just is what it is.
I don't know. My family is just very a traditional West Indian family. You have that one aunt who says too much that's on her mind. But other than that, I left home to just pursue my own dreams. As far as family is concerned, I think I just came to a point where everybody deals with their issues. So, for instance, my dad, we had a huge conversation, and it happened on the tail of my baby cousin passing away, and he was wondering why he wasn't invited to the funeral. And I'm like, well, if you don't call family, then family not gonna rock with you. Well, why should I call them? And it's just I've come to the understanding that my dad is just who he is. And it's the same thing with my mom. My mom is a ride or die, but then she also annoys me, because she's my mom. And I just, go with that. But as far as toxicity, it's not. It's just more of the general family annoyances, which I think because my family was so strong, in particular my mom, it's kind of helped me propel me to where I am today. But thankfully, anything that was beyond crazy, which is more on my dad's side, my mom kept me away from. So
my mom just actually came around. She actually apologized for the first time in her life. She actually told me she was proud of me for the first time in her life.
Growth.
Yeah, it was a lot of growth. I was like, oh, I'm so proud of you. We had a moment in Walmart.
Aren't you the only child, too?
Yeah.
She needs somebody to take care of her.
Same. Only child.
She needs somebody to take care of her.
That's what it is. Everybody says that, too. What about you, Candy? Because you got split sides.
I didn't really grow up with my white side like that. So the thing is that what I realized is that I think a lot of times family members have issues with each other because they don't really know each other. At least that was the issue with me and my siblings because, like I said before, we grew up in foster care and we were in different homes. So we didn't really grow up getting to know each other. So that is probably one of the biggest issues that we face today. And while we're not as close as I would like for us to be, we're all kind of like loners in our own way. And that's one of the things about growing up in foster care for the people out there that don't really know, like, on holidays, you really don't have a place to go to call home, So, like, most times you go to your friend's house or your family's house. And because me and my siblings, we didn't really grow up together, our first reaction isn't to call each other for the holidays, Hopefully that's something that we do. But when we do have arguments and disagreements, a lot of it is simply because we just don't know each other, or, we're more alike than we know that we are. So we bump heads. And that can be very toxic, when you want to have a relationship with somebody, but a lot of times your pride or your ego or your lack of knowing stands in the way.
Is blood thicker than water?
I think it just depends on your family. Like, my brother and I, we don't talk. We've never talked often because of our age difference. But for me, if anybody does anything to him, and I think I just adopted that from my mom, like, you best believe that there's going to be some problems. For him, it's a little bit different because he's married and he's now on his, like, third child. So his priority's a little bit different. But I would like to think that if Ish went down, like, he would be there.
My straight up answer is no.
You said blood is not thicker than water.
Blood is not always thicker than water. No.
I feel that.
Because I've had friends who have supported me more than my family ever has.
Yeah, I think it just depends. I know people who they roll with their cousins are like ride or die. They're like brothers and sisters and friends and all encompassing. It just depends on the person. It depends on the person and how their family interacts. Unfortunately, not all families are, they act accordingly.
So what about yourself? Like, toxic relationships with yourself, like insecurities, narratives you tell yourself. How do you overcome that?
I used to be really toxic towards myself. And I think that's something I talked about on an earlier podcast, where I was very confident and I, really loved myself. And I went through this weird place where I started to hate myself because I do suffer from depression. It runs in my family. But it's something that I've overcame when I got older. But something weird happened when I moved back to LA, where I started to not really like myself. So I became very toxic. I do it a little bit. I still do it a little bit where someone gives me a compliment, I'm not quick to say thank you. I always feel like I gotta be like, oh no, like someone's like, you look nice, and I'm like, oh, do I really? But I'm working on myself, and I used to be really bad and really insecure for the past year. But I got to a place where I really started to love myself and started glowing and started feeling myself and loving my body. And
you
loving
better
myself.
Glow, queen.
Okay. Thanks. But it took me a while to get there. But I was very toxic towards myself after living in LA because, falling for all the LA shit.
I think it's a habit. It's definitely a habit because I still have insecurities like those pictures. I was like, man, I look 3 months pregnant. I am bigger than what I've ever been. So that has always been kind of like an insecurity of mine because when I do get around my family, they be like, ooh, you look big now. And so that's been kind of like an insecurity. But I feel like it's a trait it's easier to be negative than positive. So I think how I've overcome is just to always do my meditation, always have my affirmations, and always remind myself who the fuck I am. Okay? Because at the end of the day, who's going to love me more than me? So I just have to always remind myself of that.
For me, the toxic part is just putting an immense amount of pressure on myself to succeed. And people who see me go through it, they're like you already work hard. So it's like you're putting this additional pressure on yourself when like you already put in the work. It's gonna come. So there's that, and then definitely the weight thing has definitely been a thing for me because it's like I was on that mountaintop. Like I was a professional athlete. Like I 11% body fat. Like I had the body that people like die for. And now it's just like, I don't have the time. I was talking to a friend of mine, like we ran track together. Like we used to train 6 hours a day. We barely can get 45 minutes to an hour. So it's like one of those things. However, it's just funny that I think I mentioned on another episode that I've like started, dating gentlemen callers who are on the slimmer basketball type side. and they are very more appreciative of like curves and like stuff, and it's just like it's not weird to me, but it's like weird to me because it's just like are you not seeing what I'm seeing? Like, this is not.
They love it.
They
But
love
that
it.
means you gotta start telling yourself something different.
Well, that's the thing. Because of those gentleman callers, like, I've now just, accepted it. Not necessarily I'm not going to not work out, but I've now accepted it that, people are going to love you regardless.
right.
That's a
And
fact.
I'm going to love myself regardless of it.
Right.
So, but, it wasn't, the meditation helped, but it was also like legitimately having somebody like kiss on the belly fat. I'm like,
Listen.
what do you
Someone
what?
told me they like my rolls. I
Yeah.
said, ooh, thank you.
Candy, what do you have to say?
I just want to say that for me, I had to get to the root of where my toxicity was coming from.
Mhm.
And I realized that, like, a lot of mine was coming from, like, childhood traumas. Like, growing up, I had to shrink myself, because when people would compliment me, the elders around me would put me down. Oh, she thinks she all of that. She thinks she this. To the point where, like, sometimes, you start to carry that with you, and
Mhm.
as, like, an adult, so, like, for me, I just had to, like, build myself back up. And even sometimes I think we still get inside our head. But, like, you're right. I agree with what all y'all said. We just got to remind ourselves that we a bad bitch, that God has given us everything that we need to succeed, and we just got to walk in that and own that.
This wraps up the episode, Queens. Any toxic relationships, just remind yourself to love yourself. Go meditate, get your affirmations, pray, do whatever you need to do to make sure that you are taking care of you. So yeah, I feel like we have to have another round of this as well.
Yeah.
But Queens, let them know where they can find you.
You guys can find me on all social media at Kiki Boom Boom.
Hey, Queens, you can find me on Instagram at Miss Candy Marie.
And you can find me on everything at TK Trinidad.
And you can find me everywhere at It's Monique Loveless. Make sure you come in our DMs if you have any questions, if you just want to vent, at Queens Uncut on all social media platforms. And make sure you listen to our next episode next Wednesday. And if you haven't heard the rest of them, catch up, Queens, because we here to Queen Chat with you. Thank you for tuning in.
Bye.
Ciao.